Thinking now about the music of Prince and Janet Jackson, these four artists, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, and Janet Jackson, interesting interconnections between all of them. Prince and Janet Jackson maybe having more of their success in the second half of the 1980s, but all of them big MTV stars and stars that depended an awful lot on the video dimension of what they did to bring the music to audiences. So let's start with the music of Prince. From Minneapolis, Minnesota, born Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince developed an image as a kind of sexually charged and somewhat androgynous figure. If you look at the video of him during those days and the pictures and stuff, you're reminded to a certain extent of maybe somebody like David Bowie during the Ziggy Stardust period. You know, you're not really quite sure whether he's dressing to sort of approach more his feminine side, or whether he's just a dandy or a pretty boy, or what exactly is going on. But there's something definitely sort of sexually charged, so it's not like he's not interested, asexual. He's definitely sexual. And definitely, you know, in a lot of his songs, you can tell that sexuality is of a markedly kind of heterosexual nature, but his appearance is somewhat androgynous, and so in many ways continues some of that kind of thing that we've already seen happening in rock and roll. Certainly has his roots in 1970s black pop and funk, so really kind of coming out of the Parliament Funkadelic, Sly and the Family Stone kind of background and sound and approach to his music making. Prince is a guy that was extremely prolific as a songwriter. I mean, the guy could just write songs and songs and songs, a fantastic multi-instrumentalist. If you left Prince alone in a studio, with all the instruments there, he could probably record, you know, any number of tunes in an afternoon, or at least one. You know, give him a couple of days, he could probably do a whole album. In fact, one of the problems for a while was that Prince was recording and had more music ready to go than the record company was willing to release. They thought, no, come on, we can't sell this stuff if you're going to flood the market, you know. So it turns out that Prince has got, or the reports are, that Prince has got tons and tons of music in a vault somewhere, so we can look forward to hearing tons of this Prince music unfold as the years go by. Tracking his career a bit, we can turn to the album Prince from 1979. His initial success was mostly in the rhythm and blues market. So unlike Michael Jackson, who was really crossing over, Prince was really having his success with black audiences. That album, as I say, Prince from 1979, going to number 3 on the R&B charts, with a number 1 R&B hit, I Wanna Be Your Lover, made it to number 11 on the pop charts. But again, most of his early success in the black market, the black music market. 1980, Dirty Mind, a number 7 R&B hit album. Controversy from 1981, a number 3 R&B album, made it to number 21 on the pop charts. But it's with the 1982 album, 1999, which was a number 9 hit album, but that song, 1999, became extremely popular, especially after he had his success with the next album, Purple Rain. That was a number 12 pop hit, number 4 on the R&B charts. Other hits he had, Little Red Corvette, a number 6 hit on the pop charts, number 15 on the R&B charts. Delirious was a number 8 pop pop hit, and a number 18 R&B hit. We look at some of the music that's on 1999, you can really start to see the different dimensions of Prince's music. On the one hand, you've got that title song, 1999, that starts off with the big keyboard chords sounding an awful lot like the Mama and Papa's Monday, Monday. But the sort of the big synth, big beat kind of sound really kind of reminds you of a kind of a 80s version of Sly and the Family Stone. You know, kind of sing along. That's the kind of song that if you've been to a wedding reception in the last, I don't know, ever since that's been out, the last 30 years or something like that, you've probably heard that song played by a DJ, and the minute it hits, everybody's out on the dance floor. It's a fantastic dance number. But if you go a little bit deeper into the album and you listen to the track Lady Cab Driver, the song about Prince, and he's hooking up with this lady cab driver, and the whole end of the song is an explicit sexual encounter between Prince and this lady cab driver, as explicit as any of those disco records with the moaning and groaning, except maybe even more so. So you can really sort of see the sexuality element in what Prince was doing. And these kinds of things went over real big. This element of it went over real big in his stage shows. Had to tame it down a bit for videos and that kind of thing, because after all, they did have to broadcast this stuff. Well, after 1999, from 1982, we get Purple Rain, a #1 album for Prince and the Revolution, now as he was calling the group, #2 on the R&B charts. This was also a soundtrack to a film that was released by a major studio, a film that was not directed by Prince or written by Prince, but was designed to showcase Prince, not unlike the Beatles' A Hard Day's Night, say. It became a real cult classic. You can still find it on movie channels on cable TV in America. I'm sure if you go to Netflix or any of the kind of movie, online movie dealers, you should be able to find it there too. A number of big hits on that. When Doves Cry was #1. Let's Go Crazy, #1. Another great sort of dance tune, Let's Go Crazy. Purple Rain, #2. I Would Die for You, #8. These records, 1999 Purple Rain, really defined Prince, I think, in the middle of the 1980s. He goes on with tremendous success. I mean, I'm just going to list these albums, but they're fantastically successful sort of year after year. And remember, not only were these top records that came out one every year, but he had a lot more material. They were telling him, don't release it. We can't take any more than what you're already giving us. Around the World in a Day, #1 in 1985. Parade, #3 in 1986. Sign o' the Times, #6 in 1987. Love Sexy, #11 in 1988. And the soundtrack to the movie Batman, #1 in 1989. Fantastic success. In the sweepstakes, in the 80s sweepstakes for who was the bigger artist, Prince or Michael Jackson, Michael Jackson probably takes the prize in the 80s. In the 90s, as Michael Jackson starts to fall from favor and Prince continues to be active, I think the equation maybe starts to change a bit, and it will probably continue to change as we look back on the music of both of these artists. But anyway, if you juxtapose Prince and Michael Jackson, you really did get two very sort of photogenic guys, fantastic performers. Michael Jackson, more the dancer, Prince, more the sort of musician type, but a very interesting sort of juxtaposition. Well, we talk about Prince and Michael Jackson. How about the career of Janet Jackson, who is the youngest sister of the Jackson kids, and who ends up being produced by associates of Prince from Minneapolis, two guys by the name of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. So there's where the Prince and the Jackson family thing sort of comes together in the music of Janet Jackson. But let's back up a little bit, tell a little bit the story of Janet Jackson's career. As I said, she's the youngest sister of the Jackson 5 members, many Jackson kids, having, as I said, originally grown up in Gary, Indiana, but then eventually making it to LA, because that's really where Motown was located by the early 1970s. Like her brother, her famous brother Michael, her act showcases dancing. She's a fantastic dancer. Many of those early dance routines from MTV, I think, were choreographed by Paula Abdul, at least some of them were. She was a child actress, so she appeared on television shows like Good Times, Different Strokes, Fame. So kind of a child star. That was the direction that her career seemed to be going. And so the first couple of albums she did as a musician were very much in that child star kind of mold. There was one called Janet Jackson from 1982, and another one called Dream Street from 1984. This has sometimes been called bubblegum soul. It was very much dominated by her family and by her dad. She was very much under their management. I would advise you, if you can on the internet, to compare the pictures of Janet Jackson, Dream Street, and then what you see with the third album, Control. The break is obvious. The first two look very, sort of teen idol, network TV, squeaky clean, teenage kind of thing. The third one, it's like Janet Jackson has got something she wants to say, something she needs to prove. And I think that something she needs to prove thing is a key to understanding a good deal of what happens in her career and her music. What she does with Control, her big #1, really it's the album that made her career, the big #1 album from 1986, is she breaks with her family. She doesn't want to have anything to do with them managing her music or her career or any of it. Gets new management, different record company people, everything. She brings in Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who had worked together with Prince, a group called Time in Minneapolis. And they produce the records, and she decides she's going to go at it as a way to really sort of show that she's somebody different now. And so, well, she has fantastic success with the record. 5 top 5 singles, including When I Think of You, a #1 hit, Let's Wait a While, a #2 hit. I would draw your attention to 2 particular songs on that record to really get a sense of what Janet Jackson has got to prove with this album. I would first direct you to the song Control, which starts with a spoken declaration of independence. That is, she's basically saying, I'm in control now. This is my thing, you know, and she basically sort of narrates it. And after this sort of dramatic introduction where she sort of does this kind of declaration of independence, and then bang, the tune hits. And so you get the idea what this record is about. It's like, hey, it's my career now, here we go. And then there's the sexuality element. Janet Jackson, always a very, at this point in her career, maybe emphasizing the sexual element, not only because Madonna's already done that, so it's not like she's the first one to do it, and maybe she has to outdo Madonna or compete with Madonna in that element to a certain extent, but also because she'd been such a squeaky clean teen idol, maybe she felt like she had something to prove or some ground to make up in that area. Who knows? But if you listen to the song Nasty, that song, if you listen to the lyrics and all that goes with it, really is a complete break with teen innocence with regard to sexuality. Well, Janet Jackson continues her career in the second half of the 80s with Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814, a #1 album in 1989 with 7 top 5 singles, 4 #1 hits on that record. It's a concept album addressing social injustice, but really pretty much continues the, I don't want to say formula, but the approach that she used in the Control album from 1986. So in many ways, I think that Janet Jackson's career from this period can be looked at as sort of a continuation of Madonna's sexual rebellion, meeting up with a kind of a proof of independence. In other words, she has, coming out of that Jackson family, and what we've come to understand is can be kind of an oppressive environment to one's personal identity. She needs to prove that she's her own person, and she continues with the kind of challenging of sexuality and sexual roles in society that Madonna had in many ways sort of made famous, especially with that Like a Virgin video that we talked about in the last video. And you can see more of this Janet Jackson sexuality thing playing out in 2 incidents that are, I won't say scandalous, but pretty famous. The first is the 1993 Rolling Stone cover, the cover to Rolling Stone magazine, where you see Janet Jackson on the front of the cover topless, but with arms of some unknown man coming around and covering her breasts, right? And the subtitle there on the cover says, Janet Jackson, the joy of sex. Right, so pretty scandalous cover for its day, sold a lot of magazines. And then, of course, there's the famous Super Bowl 2004 wardrobe malfunction, where when in performing together with Justin Timberlake at the halftime show of the Super Bowl, what was supposed to be just a ripping away of her top to show her breast covered by some sort of undergarment. The undergarment itself came when Justin Timberlake pulled it away, and you got just the bare breast on national TV with mom, dad, grandma, the kids, and the dog all watching. It was a scandal. I remember sitting there watching it saying, did I see what I thought I just saw? Unbelievable. Not like you couldn't see that like any evening on Cinemax on cable TV, but to see it at a Super Bowl was really scandalous. Did she do it on purpose? Does she have a history of these kinds of shocking things? Well, I think she wanted to shock with the undergarment there, but she shocked more than she planned to when the other undergarment gave way, the wardrobe malfunction, and there was her breast clear for everybody to see in prime time. How many viewers were watching that? Certainly a lot. So When we bring it together, we have now 4 artists that really, through their success on MTV, really, by the time you get to the 86, 87 period, you gotta tune into MTV to see what Michael Jackson's doing, what Madonna's doing, what Prince is up to, what Janet Jackson's up to. Fantastic success from these 4 artists really turn MTV into a force to be reckoned with. In the next video, we'll talk about more MTV success stories.